Good morning, everyone. It is 10 a.m. and it is time for Rum Shop Talk. We are going to continue on our theme, and it is Women's History Month. Last week, we talked about our mindset, we talked about motivation, and we talked about our finances. And this week, we'll be drilling down a little bit about finances. But before we get there, I wanted to highlight the first, just highlight women in the law, right? Part of it being because I am a woman in the law. And the other part is because I found it really interesting when I was doing research about notable women. So the first woman lawyer in the United States was Arabella Mansfield, and that was in 1869. So think about it, you guys. In 1869, we have a very first woman lawyer, and that was before women were allowed to vote. That was before women were allowed to, really be considered full human beings. But we had a first female lawyer. What's cool about Arabella is that she didn't go to law school. She actually practiced law in her brother's law practice, and then she petitioned the court. So that was in Iowa, and she petitioned the court. The judge's name was Judge Francis Springer, and he was someone who was sympathetic to women's rights, and so she petitioned him for the right to be admitted to the bar, and he, of course, allowed her to. And what was really cool is that a couple of years later, Iowa legislature actually amended the statutes to allow women to practice the law. And so by her taking that bold step and petitioning a judge to be allowed to take the bar, which at the time in Iowa was only limited to white males, she actually effected a change in the law, and Iowa became the first state in the United States to allow women to practice law. So that was really awesome. I don't think she probably foresaw how her brave step was going to actually change the face of law for women like me. The next woman I wanted to highlight was the first African American lawyer, and her name was Charlotte E. Ray. And what was cool about Charlotte is she attended Howard University School of Law not that much later than Arabella did. So in 1872, Charlotte enrolled at Howard under the name C.E. Ray to disguise her gender. You can't tell who C.E. is from that. It could be anybody. And she ended up going to law school, passing the bar in D.C., becoming the first woman to be licensed to practice law in D.C. So above and beyond being the first African-American woman to be a lawyer in America, she was the first woman to be a lawyer in D.C. And she started her own practice in D.C., practicing commercial law, and ended up, and she would advertise in a newspaper that Frederick Douglass was running at the time to get clients. I think these women are phenomenal. And the reason why I think they're phenomenal is because their bravery, their ambition paved the way to me standing here with you guys every Friday and being able to impart my legal wisdom to you. So without women like Arabella and Charlotte, I wouldn't be here. So for all us lawyer women out here, let's tip our hats to these women who were the first to come in our careers, in our profession, to be able to allow us to do what we love to do and be able to serve our clients the way we do. I also wanted to highlight some statistics that I discovered. So in 2020, the American Bar Association, the ABA, did a report, and it was about the demographics of lawyers in America. And they found that out of all of the lawyers in America, only 36% of them are women. So we had our first female lawyer, you guys, and I kind of like, it's like it's staggering to me. We had our first female lawyer in 1869. However, in 2020, only 36% of lawyers are women. Let me actually really like drill that down for you guys, right? Also in that ABA report, they found that 5% of black women are, 5% of black people, 5% of lawyers, Friday, 5% of lawyers are black, African American. So if only 36% of lawyers are women, and out of all the lawyers in America, only 5% are black, can you imagine what percentage of black lawyers are in America? And our first black female lawyer was in 1872. It shows that even if the first black woman to become a lawyer was over, what, a century ago, we have not been able to really make those strides and close those gaps. There is still a lot of representation. There's still a lot of like movement to be had for women, but more so for black women in this country. And yes, I've been seeing, and we could look at statistics and realize that more black women are enrolling, and you could point out to people like Kamala and say, well, you know what, and Michelle Obama, and say, look, there's black lawyers out there, but the numbers don't lie. It's like out of the millions of lawyers in America, less than 5% of them are black women. So one of the things I hope to do with my platform is to show women, show little girls, little black girls, that they can do this, and that there is room for them in this profession, and that there are people that we need more women like them in the legal profession, because as women, we know how to speak to other women. And as black women, we know how to speak to other black women because we understand that struggle. And we need more people like us to be able to talk to more people like them to be able to represent them effectively. It's like when we talk about access to legal to law. Part of access to law is representation, being able to be served by someone who looks like you, who understands you and your struggles, and who can speak your language. So if you guys have little black girls out there, tell them we want them, we need them in the legal profession, and that it can be done. We're going to move on to our legal tip for today. And like I said, we're going to do a continuation of last week. So ladies, last week we talked about how to work on your mindset. And if any of you guys took the imposter syndrome test I mentioned last week, I had put the link down in the comments last week of the video last week. If you took the test and you want to tell us what your number is, it'd be great to see it. I told you guys what my number was, so show me your number. Also, we talked about motivation and finding your passion, and finding your why and why that's important. And we also talked about finances. So I wanted to do a little bit more talking about finances, and I wanted to point out 5 things. And I did this last week for a different, like a women's empowerment program that I was a part of, and thought it would be really cool to share with all of you guys. So there are 5 things I feel like, ladies, whether you're single or married, you need to have as a way of protecting. We are the protectors of our family. We are the nurturers. We are the caregivers more often than not. So here are 5 things that you guys need to do to protect your family, and to protect your wealth, and to protect your legacy. Thing number 1, you need to have some kind of what we call a dispositive document. Some document that is going to tell people what to do with your things when you pass away. That could be a trust, that could be a will, but you need to have it. And if you have young kids, you need to have guardian nominations for those young children. If something happens to you, and especially if you are a single parent out there raising your children, you need to have a guardian nomination, someone, multiple people listed who can take ownership of your children if something happens to you. You don't want your children ending up in the system, right? And a lot of us immigrants, especially, we come here and sometimes we're here without family. So there's not someone who's readily available to be able to take care of your child. So if you are single, must do. And even if you're not single, you and your spouse go out on vacation and something happens to you, you need to have someone listed to be able to take your children. So you need a dispositive document and built in a will. You want to have guardian nominations or standalone guardian nominations. Either way, those things need to happen. You need to work on getting that done. Thing number two, doable powers of attorney. No time has made this so much more obvious than the last year that we just had, with people ending up in hospitals, ending up in ventilators, not being able to advocate for themselves, not being able to manage their lives, but recovering and having to come back to it. You need to have someone appointed to continue to manage your life for you. Pay your bills, file your taxes, deal with your insurance issues, speak on your behalf with regard to your finances. That person needs to be listed. Every state out there is going to have its power of attorney form. So if you're like, you know what, I cannot afford a lawyer to help me, states have created statutory forms that you can use, which are very easy and acceptable, as long as it's done properly. And it also tells you how to do it as well. So no excuses. You can get a power of attorney. Along the same vein, an advanced healthcare directive. You want to list someone who can step in and make medical decisions for you. And whoever that person is, you also want to talk to that person and tell that person what those decisions should look like. It's one thing to appoint someone, but if you don't tell them what they're supposed to do, they cannot effectively advocate for you. So, number one, we want our dispositive documents. We want to name our guardian nominations. We want to do powers of attorneys. We want to do advanced healthcare directives. And that applies to whether you're married or not. If you're in a relationship with someone, especially if you're not married, you want to make sure that that person has the authority to make those decisions for you. So that's where that authority is going to come from. And lastly, I implore you to make a list of all of your assets, all of your liabilities, what you own and what you owe. Why is that important? If someone needs to step into your life and they need to manage your life for you, they need to know what they're managing. And who better to tell them what to manage but you? And the problem is when that information is needed, more often than not, you are not available to give it. So now that while you still have the ability, while you still have the capacity, make that list. Tell them, I pay my electricity bills, and it is automated. It is automated pay. The bill it's into my email. Tell them that stuff so that they know where to look to be able to pay your bills. Because if you're in the hospital, more often than not, you recover and you got to come back to your life. But while you're there, while you're indisposed, life goes on. And we need to make sure that we are preparing the people in our lives to be able to continue to take care of our lives for us if we're incapacitated. And of course, if you pass away, making sure that you're protecting those assets, protecting your family, protecting your wealth, not only for your current generation, but for generations to come. So, like I said, we women, we are in the space of being able to really be the ones who push for that, because we are the nurturers and we are the caregivers of our family. So take the little nuggets here, and hopefully you're gonna move and you're gonna do those things and protect what it's like we work so hard, we care and we love about the people in our lives, and these are the ways that I know can, and I've seen it happen, can protect those things that we create and protect the relationships that we care so much about and that we spend so much time nurturing and caring for. So this is today's episode of Rum Shop Talks. I hope you guys learned something. I look forward to seeing you next week for another episode of Rum Shop Talks. You guys have a beautiful Friday, a wonderful weekend, and see you next week for another awesome woman who paved the way and more legal tips. Bye.